Personal branding strategies in 2026. Today I'm joined with Mike, Paul and Luke, who are going to be talking about the importance of personal branding and also what type of strategies you can be doing to try to improve your brand SERP. So Mike, let's kick things off. Why is it important to have a personal brand this year?
I just think that it's getting harder and harder with the rise of AI to cut above like the generic advice, and that if you were selling services, whether that's in, I don't know, the fitness niche or the SEO niche, like if you were a personal trainer and someone wanted to hire you, or they didn't know if they want to hire you or not, like what's making you different? If they Google your name or they search you on social media and there's nothing there, or you just pasted some generic advice, then it's not going to do you any favors, is it? In a world where everyone's just turning to ChatGPT as their personal assistant, your personal brand is better than ever, because there's the doorway is the barrier to entry, I should say, is lower than ever before for anyone to start like some sort of online business now. Loads of young people are doing it, so your reputation and the way you put yourself out there is more important than ever. If you just got a generic homepage or no homepage at all, there's no other information about you on the web, no testimonials, no reviews, you're not being on any podcasts, you're not doing any video or anything like that, then why would anyone want to hire you? Well, there's some people that are doing everything on every platform. You search for their name and they're just everywhere. You can't not see them.
Personal branding, Paul Truscott, why do you think it's important?
Well, all of what Mike just said, for sure, because it is so important now with access to information being kind of ubiquitous and cheap. It's not difficult now for people to find out who you are, who you're not, at least the perceived who you are, which is based on online content. So if you're not visible, if your personal brand isn't visible, and let's face it, the first thing somebody's going to do, if they know who the person behind a business is, or if you are the face of the business, the first thing they're going to do is Google your name. And if when they Google your name, nothing appears, or worse still, bad things appear, and there's nothing good there, then that's it. You're dead out of the gate. And it's so, I don't know. It's not simple to do. There is work to do in this, but there's nothing complicated about actually doing it. People just tend not to bother. I mean, even big companies, incredibly, the founders of big companies don't have any personal brand presence, which I find it doesn't make any sense to me why they wouldn't do it, or it just doesn't occur to them, I guess. But yeah, it's really, really important now more than ever, for sure.
What about you, Luke?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. Like, brand protection is really key. We all know there are these hundreds of Web 2.0 websites that you can sign up to for free with a handle. You can choose any handle that fits within the character limits. So if you're not controlling the narrative around who you are and your personal brand, somebody else can. And that can be deliberate by a bad actor, or it could be just by accident. I've seen examples of people I know who went to start to build their personal brand, but they realised at that stage there's someone who just happened to have the same name as them, and there was some really unfavourable connections, like somebody who just happened to have the same name and they'd gone to jail for doing something really unspeakable. So when, as Paul was saying, when someone types in your name to try and find out who you are, if you don't control that narrative, even if it's just a split second decision where you think, oh, well, that's not the Paul Truscott I was looking for. He didn't go to jail for doing A, B, C and D unspeakable things. Still, it can subconsciously plant that seed. It lengthens the sales cycle. Probably you lose phone calls and you lose inquiries and connections from that. So yeah, definitely brand protection. The other thing I would say is, like, I often get asked, well, certainly in the last 3 months, I've started to get asked by clients for advice on products. So this is people who have a personal brand who are looking to sell the product that's associated with their personal brand. And I didn't realise until the last 3 or 4 months how high the percentage is of business that gets done just based on personal recommendation, even at the enterprise level. It always seems to be, oh, I met so-and-so at a conference, they seemed really legit, they've got this SaaS. Do you think it would be any good, Luke? Can you check this out on our website? Do you think it would work? And that personal recommendation is what drives the business. You can really like drive your own kind of life just around a personal brand. So yeah, those are the two big things I've learned in the last 3 to 4 months, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've gone all in on personal branding, mainly because the biggest one that's not been touched upon yet is the multiplier. So if you're ever looking to sell the business, a lot of the time they're not just looking at the asset you're looking to buy, they're looking at who is the person that is selling it. And if they don't know who you are, they don't know enough about you, there could be like downsides to that in the fact, is this person trusted, or could this asset that you're selling be propped up via a PBN network, or some shady links, or some shady redirects, or canonicals and stuff like that, because they don't know who you are. Therefore, they'll then presume that then things could be happening, and therefore you won't get the multiplier of what you're thinking. So when you're looking to sell, it becomes important as well. And I've realised that firsthand, and that's why kick-started me to start to doing the personal brand. But from there, I then started to realise, like, whether you want to call it EEAT signals, or whether you want to call it, like, the minute I attach my brand to my personal brand to a business, it always seems to perform better. Now, correlation, causation, whether you want to say EEAT is the thing, whether it's not, it just always just seems to perform better. Now, I am promoting it and stuff like that, so it could be the traffic that's coming through to it and stuff. Another one is staff. The amount of people now that reach out to me saying, James, I love the messaging of what you do. I love the service of what you provide. I want to work for you. And they're willing to work at a good rate. And I'm getting A players that are coming through that are actually applying. And then the last one for me is investment opportunities. People that wouldn't have known who I was come to me saying, James, I believe you've invested in this, this, and this. Would you be interested in investing in that? Now, I can always say no to the staff. I can always say no to the investment. But I want that opportunity of what it brings. And I think that they're the biggest parts. And then, obviously, like you mentioned there, it's controlling that message. You're controlling your own narrative, not somebody else. I think the big kind of term for me is we're now in the AI era. It's a digital moat. It's the only digital moat that you have around who you are and what you do and why you're freaking brilliant. But let's move on to the strategies. Mike, you've been doing a load of this now. You've been getting your name out there. You've been jumping on these podcasts, which is another great way. You've been doing some videos, both for your business brand and also for your personal brand. What strategies do you think is working great that people should be doing to build a personal brand?
I think video has always been a good one. You can churn out blog posts and no one's got time to read them. Everyone has a low attention span. One thing that I've noticed that has worked for me, I used to think, oh, why would I spend hours and hours teaching something for free, say on YouTube, for example, when no one will ever hire me to do that because I've just given them the exact blueprint on how to do it. And they kind of watch the video and go, okay, you know what you're talking about. I'll hire you now because I'm too busy. And I think you used to think that. I used to be like, oh, why would you share your methods of doing SEO? Because you're just going to help your competition, but they're busy doing something else anyway. And so by doing that, and going back to, like, I don't know, a personal trainer, you could be like, oh, well, if they just share every single gym movement on their Instagram and show a video how to do it, no one will ever hire them as a personal trainer. But then people go, oh yeah, he looks like he's know what he's doing. She looks like she's really confident in the gym, and they'll go hire them. And like you don't hire a nobody, do you? And it's like you said in terms of investment opportunity, they might go, oh, okay, I'm really good at making software, but I have no idea how to do SEO. Oh, that guy knows how to do SEO, so I'll just give him 50% of the business and he can do my SEO for free, and then that software could sell for millions. And if you'd just been a nobody and never made a single video, no one would know who you are, and these opportunities wouldn't fall to you, would they?
Yeah, for sure. What about yourself, Paul? Is there anything that you're working on, or anything that you're seeing others doing to build a personal brand that you've found seems to work well?
Yeah, the key, I can only speak from my own personal experience and what I'm doing to develop my own personal brand at the moment. And the key for me is everything exactly as Mike is saying, multimodal, like, although he's right that people don't want to read blogs and things, but I'd still produce them because I'd like to see everything corroborating one another. And then what's really, really critical is from Google's perspective, because all of this at the end of the day, I would say you're trying to get a knowledge panel, right? when someone Googles your name, it's like you, James. If I Google your name, I see your picture come up in front of me on the right hand side of the screen, right? That's the ultimate, because that tells people subliminally, even like somebody doesn't know anything about knowledge panels, they don't know anything about why that appears, but there's instant trust there because they know that that's not happening for no reason. Google must like you, right, to be showing your picture and all this information about you. And schema to me is the key in pulling all that together. So, and also for pulling your where you sit within your brand. So if you have a brand that lives outside of your personal brand, you want to tie those two things together. Or you may have more, like in your case, more than one brand, and you want to tie yourself to those brands. So the best way of doing that is through schema, so that Google can understand how all these things relate to one another, how your personal brand relates, if you've got any awards and credentials. One thing I found recently, I didn't even know it existed until recently, was Credly, right? And that's been a revelation to me, that Credly is the standard for accreditations. A lot of universities and academic institutions use Credly so that you can get an encrypted badge that tells search engines that you do have that qualification. And it's an absolute point of truth because it can't be faked. So I think that those are the other things, like Mike touched on, that the entry bar being low now to the game. That's true, but the entry bar to the second level of the game, which is being someone online, is high. And so that's why it's so important, because if you can get over that bar, get yourself a knowledge panel, be known online as a personal brand, you completely differentiate yourself from everything else that's on there. So yeah, schema to me is the glue that kind of binds all of that together. So if people don't understand anything about schema, because there aren't any tools that will do this for you, that's the problem. Well, it's kind of good in a way, because you don't want everybody being able to do it, but you've got to learn a little bit about schema.
Yeah, and what about you, Luke?
I would say the biggest thing on personal branding was a lesson I picked up from some designers when I was working in-house in SEO about 7 or 8 years ago. And there's this design concept. Maybe it's really obvious to everyone, I just don't know it, but I didn't know it at the time. Bite, snack, meal. So in terms of developing your personal brand, you almost need to look at 3 different types of messaging within the overall, it's almost like an online branding funnel, I suppose, personal branding funnel. But you have the bite type of content where it's really kind of short form, high level, hitting the main points of who you are, what you do, who you're looking to help, your purpose in the world, I guess. Then you have the snack, which is a slightly more kind of amplified version of that. Maybe what we're doing on here would be snack, and then meal would be a much more full sales page potentially, or a personal website, maybe even a LMS, learning management center, or learning management system. So you just have those 3 different tiers that people can interact with you and find out about you like at the level they want to and at the times they want to. I find that really helpful.
Yeah. And then back onto you, Mike, with regards to strategies, is there any platforms that you're using? Could be Facebook, could be Twitter, could be LinkedIn, could be YouTube, could be podcasting circuits, could be trying to get image creation on Instagram or Pinterest. What platforms personally do you feel help the most with regards to personal branding online? Or is it just as many different guest posts as possible?
I feel like when you try and go after guest posts a lot of the time, it's either a lot of effort doing the outreach to get, unless it's something like, say, if I knew yourself and I say, can I do a guest post for you? Or like interactions via LinkedIn or Twitter. I feel like just being able to publish on your own channels that's decent is the best way. So whether that's podcast, YouTube, shorts. I've never been big on Instagram myself, but because I've always thought to myself, SEO wise or online business wise, it's not that good. And then when I've actually looked into it, it's like some huge people blowing up in the SEO and digital marketing world on TikTok and Instagram with short form video. It's surprising just how much it works. Like I think too many people like overstress trying to perfect things as well and make it look studio quality. Like they'll see Joe Rogan doing a podcast and think that theirs has to look the same. when it could be something fairly raw as a conversation. Some of the best YouTube videos that I've watched in SEO have literally been a recording of a Zoom meeting or something like that, where they've just bashed ideas around like we do. It's way better than like an overly polished scripted video. So yes, I think sometimes just the actual being persistent on social media and regularly releasing a platform. I read the other day that like 90% of YouTube channels get one video posted and then they're too scared to post again because they don't get the views that they want. Whereas the guys that keep on grinding, and Luke mentioned in an earlier episode that especially in like SEO or online business, your videos you might only get a few views, but then you could get a monthly contract that's worth like 5k in SEO or something. You might go, there's that video only had 20 videos, but so the right person might see it and go, this guy knows what he's talking about, and hire you.
Yeah,
so I think just sometimes being persistent and like consistently maintaining your social presence and your online presence is enough. Sometimes it's not necessarily doing it in the right format or on the right platform, it's just getting it out there.
Yeah. What about yourself, Paul? Like with regards to strategies specifically, so like is it like you're going to go all in on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter? Like what you thinking of what could
I think
work?
all of it, to be honest. Because we're in such a multimodal world now, and people consuming from so many different sources, I think it's important to be everywhere. Certainly if it makes sense. I mean, maybe there are certain platforms where there would be an incongruence issue, potentially, depending on what you're in. Maybe a lawyer wouldn't be right on TikTok, for example, or maybe they would, I don't know. But if you don't feel that there's a level of congruence there between what you do and the platform, then there might be a credibility gap. So that makes sense to maybe avoid that. But otherwise, from an exposure perspective, just be everywhere. And don't forget to get as many of those seed platforms, if you like, the seed sites like Crunchbase. There are loads. If you're in the tech space, there are about 800 different sites that you can get a profile on that are really useful to you. Less so if you're not in that domain. But yeah, your YouTube channel, all of your social profiles. If you can get it, if you're notable enough, a Wikidata page for sure, because that's going to get you noticed by Google. But I think it's straddling the two things. One is actually getting noticed by viewers, by the public, if you like, and then the other one is the search engine and making sure that the search engine sees you as being credible. If you touched on this in the past many times, James, awards too. If you have any awards and credentials, make sure that I mentioned Credly before, but there are other ways. Like if you've been to a university or something, cite that university, cite what you did there, cite any associations with people you know too. You can do this in Schema. If you know famous people, cite them within your Schema and put it on your pages. Put pictures of you with them, that kind of thing. So it's all of that is important to do. So, and do it in as many places as possible, as long as it makes sense. Yeah.
And what about you, Luke?
Yeah, I tend to look at the actual platforms in two different ways. Pretty much what Paul was saying. You have the types where that's where the prospects you're trying to reach hang out online, so you want to be seen there. That can vary a lot from niche to niche and depending on what you're looking to do, but I almost think of those as revenue generating platforms. And then you have other ones where you're not necessarily looking to make an outreach to people who may do business with you, but they're really good for reinforcing that first type. So they could be a syndication network, it could be like RSS. We haven't touched on RSS on this podcast today, but that's a great way of not repurposing, but just getting more eyeballs and more traffic on the same content that you already have. So I'd look at it as, I guess by analogy, off page and on page. Your on page are your platforms where you want people to actually see you, get in touch. Your off page is more getting amplification of your on page platforms.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, getting the entity hub, so having that homepage for your name, so jamesdooley.com, is key, because then that can be the things that glues everything together with your schema. I think it's absolutely key. I also quite like the idea of having like a me@jamesdooley.com email. I think it looks professional when you're sending stuff out. I couldn't go and send something out from like a Gmail or a yahoo.com if I'm going to send the big slide deck out for an investment, it has to be, I feel, done in a professional way where I can go back to, this is who I am, this is what I do, and it's all glued together with everything else. I think video, like you said, it's raw. It's you on the video. You can start to understand a little bit more about them. I think that's key, and then obviously sharing it on podcasting circuits is key. But yeah, I think we've all agreed it's the importance of personal branding. I also think it also forms part of online reputation management. I think just being able to control that message, that if someone is writing anything negative about you, you can try and keep that suppressed onto page 2 or page 3, and on page 1 you've got all your positive reviews, your awards and stuff like that. So I think from an ORM standpoint, I think personal branding is key. But guys, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll see you all again soon.